The Children's Bible, 1 Samuel 18 through 19. Saul's jealousy. Saul took David home that day and would not let him go back to his father's house. He set him over all his men of war, and the people in the palace servants accepted him. Jonathan, Saul's son, came to love David as his own brother, and they made a covenant of friendship. But as David was returning from the slaughter of the Philistines, the women came out of the cities of Israel singing and dancing to meet King Saul with timbrels and other musical instruments. And the women sang to each other as they played and said, "Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s." This much displeased Saul, and he said, "If they reckon that David is 10 times better than I, he will soon want to have the kingdom for himself." And from this time forward Saul eyed David with suspicion. The next day David was playing his harp as before, and an evil spirit came upon Saul, and he picked up a javelin and threw it at David, saying, "I will pin David to the wall with it." David avoided the point of the javelin, and Saul was more than ever afraid of him, for he knew that the Lord was with David, and no longer with him. But David behaved very wisely in all his ways, and all Israel loved and trusted him. Then Saul said to David, "Here is my elder daughter Merab. I will give her to you for your wife, if you will fight my battles for me." For Saul did not want to kill David with his own hand, and he hoped that he would fall in battle with the Philistines. David said, "Who am I, and what is my family that I should be the king's son-in-law?" But at the time that Merab should have been given to David, instead Saul married her to Adriel, the Meholatite. But it happened that Michal, Saul's younger daughter, also loved David, and when Saul was told of this, he was very pleased, thinking that through her love he might ensnare and destroy David. So he sent for David and told him, "Today you will be my son-in-law, and marry the other of my daughters." To his servants he said, "Take David aside and tell him privately that the king delights in him, and that all the people love him. So it is fitting that he should be the king's son-in-law." But when he heard this, David said, "I am too poor and insignificant to marry a king's daughter." The servants reported this to Saul, and he said, "Tell David that the king does not wish for any dowry, only the death of 100 Philistines to be avenged of the king's enemies." When David heard this, he was pleased, for he wanted very much to be the king's son-in-law. So he went forth with his men and slew 200 Philistines. And Saul gave him Michal as his wife. But Saul saw and knew that the Lord was with David, and Michal loved him. And he was still more afraid of David, and still more his enemy. And Saul spoke to Jonathan his son, and to all his servants, and ordered them to kill David. But Jonathan went to his friend, and said, "My father Saul is trying to kill you, so I beg of you to go and hide yourself. Tomorrow morning I shall go out and stand beside my father in the field where you are, and I will talk to him about you, and whatever I learn I shall tell you." The next day Jonathan talked to Saul as he had promised, and told him what a great and good man David was, and urged his father not to stain his hands with innocent blood. Saul listened to Jonathan's words, and promised that David should not be slain. So Jonathan called David from his hiding place, and brought him before Saul, and for a time all was well. And when the Philistines went to war again, David fought against them and slew many of them. But again Saul was possessed by an evil spirit, and sat with his javelin in his hand while David played the harp. Again he tried to kill David, and again David slipped out of the path of the javelin and escaped from the palace. Saul sent messengers to his house to watch and slay him in the morning. And Michal, David's wife, said to her husband, "If you do not get away tonight, tomorrow you will be killed." So Michal let David down through a window, and then she made the bed to look as though David were lying asleep in it. And when Saul sent his messengers to take David, she said, "He is ill." But Saul sent the messengers back to see David, saying, "Bring him up to me in his bed, and I shall slay him." When the messengers came, they saw that there was no one in the bed. Saul said to Michal, "Why have you deceived me and helped my enemy to escape?" Michal answered, "He said to me, 'Let me escape, otherwise I shall kill you.'" When David fled, he took refuge with Samuel at Naioth in Ramah.